for the supporting cast, what do they need to do here? Tyrese Maxey saved it last night. What do they need to do on Thursday to help uplift him?
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing is going to be what do they do in the non-Embiid minutes? Because Nick Nurse said before the game, like, oh, we're going to – what was the direct quote, Kyle, about – I know you're busy
not
with
a
your
dramatic change,
but probably.
But we're going to make some change, probably some small changes to
I'm
the
not
non-Embiid.
entirely sure what the changes were, and they didn't. I think it was an 11-2 run to start the second quarter for the Knicks, and then another third quarter where they at least initially attempted to not rest Embiid at all, and then midway through the fourth quarter went like, oh no, we've got to actually buy him a minute of rest here, and they bought him. I think it was 72 seconds of rest overall.
And that was with Batum at the 5.
You can't do that again. You can't play him the entire second half. We have 2 straight games of evidence that this is not going to work out in your favor. He is not built to do that even at his best, and he is nowhere near his best physically. He's nowhere near his best cardio because he just had to take 2 months off with that knee surgery. You cannot ask him to play 24 minutes straight and get a good version of Joel Embiid. We know this. So what do? Is it going small? Is it, like I've said a couple times here on the show, I'd love to see Kyle Lowry playing alongside of Tyrese Maxey in the backcourt to give them a little more structure there in that offense.
It was more
Tyrese
campaign and no Kyle Lowry in those non-Embiid minutes.
Too small to play alongside Tyrese like that. I would like to see Kyle in that role. But what do? I think that will be my most thing I am most interested in coming into that game, because more or less, look, I know Brunson still has moments where he's dominating the game, but the Knicks offense, Knicks half-court offense as a whole, I'm not all that scared of, even with Brunson. If you defend him straight up and don't give them wide open shots, I think they're going to have a chance to have success against them, especially if they limit second chance points like that again. But can you survive literally 8 minutes without Joel Embiid on the floor? That, I think, will swing the game.
So I'm going to go a different way with the supporting cast, because they ended the game with it was a lineup they used a decent amount in the regular season.
The big wing, yeah.
But the big wing lineup with Maxey and Embiid as the bookends, Oubre, Harris, and Batum in between them. I think both for the closing groups, but also for those minutes where you have to get by without Joel Embiid, they have to try to size up at a lot of these positions. I thought you could really see the difference rebounding down the stretch of that game. So give Joel credit for offensively, he was a disaster for long stretches of that game. Rebounding and defense, he was committed to for vast majority of the game, I would say. But he also got a lot of help. There were some big Nick Batum rebounds, some big Kelly Oubre rebounds. Frankly, some big Tobias Harris rebounds on plays that he just never makes. And I know he will mostly get lost in the shuffle because people have written the book on him and it's over and what have you. I think that game showed a lot of character, or at least basketball character from him, where he's already, in a lot of ways, he's already looking to the future, right? And he's already in the midst of a terrible series. And another poor or anonymous game would have blended into the background. Meanwhile, he comes out with their backs against the wall, scores their first 5 points, and hit 3 or 4 of the biggest shots of the entire game to stop runs from getting out of control, bought in on defense, rebounded the ball. It's going to take everyone, to your point. I do think, though, playing Lowry with Maxey in those closing lineups, I'm not sure it's going to work.
Oh, no, I wasn't saying in the closing lineups.
Yeah.
I wasn't saying in the lineups. In fact, I would like to see less of Lowry, and this maybe goes to your point. When Embiid is on the floor, play the big lineup, because you don't need Lowry's playmaking and ball handling as much as you do, because Embiid's going to handle so much of the shot creation. And even in the first half, when Embiid wasn't playing well, I actually liked his approach. His energy level wasn't there, but I liked his approach for the most part, because he was trying to get everyone involved. He wasn't trying to necessarily take a ton of shots or draw fouls. He was trying to create open threes, and I think they actually did a pretty good job of creating open threes. The problem is Embiid had some uncharacteristically lackadaisical turnovers, and the Sixers weren't making any shots. I think they shot 6 for 22 from three-point range in the first half, but I sort of like the approach. What I'd like to see is more of Lowry's minutes come when Embiid is off the floor, because I think they do need somebody to help get Tyrese open, take the ball handling responsibilities off, and run some good offense.
Yeah. I'm not saying send Lowry to the moon and you can't play him, but
we both agreed you don't need him 35 to 40 minutes. Yes, that's too much Kyle Lowry.
He's playing too big a role, and I think honestly, one of the main differences between the end of game 4, end of game 5 is that Kyle Lowry's not trying to box out OG Anunoby. Somebody like Batum or Harris or Oubre is. And they're trying to compete for rebounds rather than a 6', 38-year-old guard. Like, that's not an indictment on Lowry. He's given everything he has.
He's a good rebounder for a 6', 38-year-old guard. Yeah.
But he only has so much to offer. And that big wing group is, I think it's, if you go by lineup stats, that's their second most played group all year, which is crazy because in my head I was like, I don't feel like we've seen that often, mostly because guys haven't been healthy and whatnot. But that to me might have been the most important, other than Tyrese saving the season, that may be the most important thing we saw in game 5. Now the question is, did they stumble into that?
Probably.
But is Nick
Nurse
willing to go back to that? Because we all know, and one of the things we said when Kyle Lowry signed here, how much does he trust him and believe in him? And is there a point at which that actually becomes a problem for the team, that he trusts him so much that he plays him too much and in favor or instead of lineups that actually should be out there?
Well, most of it was out of necessity because you just couldn't go any other way with the Melton piece. You weren't going campaign early. You had to go somewhere, and he was the one that was providing that. And through the first, 4 games, he was the third best player on the team. But you're right. Maybe he did, Nick Nurse, stumble upon something last night that he now has to go back to. He found something and maybe considered it, maybe didn't consider it. Maybe one of the coaches brought it to his attention that was something that needed to be done. Kyle Lowry, maybe he himself said, hey, maybe we need to go big here. You never know what it was, but for whatever it is, that's something that needs to pop up once again and show itself in this series as long as they continue on to play in this series, because the rebounding, they won that battle again last night. And they were on the glass. Joel Embiid to get 16 and can't even jump was really good. And for them to out-rebound the New York Knicks last night, 46-40, the offensive rebounding is still a problem where they get their chances. New York does. But on the glass, they boarded last night. And even late in the game, I remember one possession, Knicks missed. Joel Embiid had a great box out. He couldn't chase it. He pointed at it. And whoever was the nearest guy just ran to it and scooped it up because that floorboard, as we know, was necessary. So they're doing a better job at team rebounding to make sure that they help everybody out. If the Knicks can crash all 5, the Sixers may not crash all 5 all the time, but they need to actively attack the basketball, attack the glass to get those rebounds, or else we know it's going to be a problem. So maybe they found something. Maybe they go there. As far as me with the rotations, I look at it and I say this. We already know that this is your 7. That's your 7. It's just a matter of how that 7 is going to work. Paul Reed, he's probably out now. And Campaign is taking over for the Buddy Hield minutes. Nick Batum is going to play some 5. Who knows if he even experiments a little bit more. Tobias Harris playing aggressively. If he has some of that big lineup minutes where he has to play the 5 because Batum might be in foul trouble. Something along those lines. It's not going to go any deeper than that, so we can all stop with the KJ Martin and the Ricky Council as much as we love Ricky.
I'm still a little disappointed that neither one of those guys has seen the floor.
It just doesn't seem like it's going to happen.
Especially if you're going to go
it's not going to happen. So the 7 is what the 7 is. And the 7 helped you win last night. So it's now a matter of how you divide those minutes with Joel Embiid. Tobias Harris was playing well. He normally comes off midway through the first.
Yes.
He kept him in for 11 minutes and change through that first quarter. Joel Embiid, can he come out a little bit earlier because Harris is playing better and you can go with the Batum minutes there. So that's when I asked you the other day, what do the minutes look like? It wasn't that change it. It's just more of how do you preserve it, knowing that you're probably going to go deeper into that game with Embiid upping his minutes like he did last night in that second half and in that overtime. So the 7 is what the 7 is, and that's where they're going to go. The roster is not great right now. They have to just find a way to win game by game, quarter by quarter, minute by minute in this series with one more in front of you in game number 6.
We all silly like the mayor.